By far the biggest fish he'd ever seen in the water was on that lake. He said, mate, it was like a Labrador sat in the water. Where do I start? Like with any lake, you need a bite, don't you? And I did not see where one was coming from.
Big pit carping.
So I really wanted to go and target like a big quality mirror. This was a big slab of open water. Pings out the clip and absolutely melts. The buzz of a bite on somewhere like that you just don't really know how you're going to catch one from. It was just a joke. Just felt like absolutely the epitome of like proper carp fishing. I thought, what is in here? At this point I was like, what is in here? Impeccable. They looked like they'd never been caught. Seeing that fish, helping with the photos, I think it was like upper 49s at that point. Like, it's massive now, but for then it was huge.
Right, sorry to interrupt, but whilst I have your attention, I just want to talk about a couple of things. Firstly, would you please subscribe to our YouTube channel? We would massively appreciate it, and you will stay very much up to date with everything YouTube orientated that we do. Secondly, and as well as asking you for a little favour, we have a little something that might be of interest to you. If you click the link in description or scan the QR code on screen, you will be entitled to 50% off your first 3 months as a Cypography member. And as a Cypography member, you will get access to over 1,000 videos and several other member perks.
Scott, we're going to talk today about a campaign deep in the Colne Valley on one of the waters that I think for probably the last 20 or so years has been spoken about in hushed tones, the famous Harefield 2. How did you first come to know about it, mate, and where were you in your angling at the time?
Right, yeah, special place. It was 2009 in the winter. That was my first proper year seriously carp fishing. I'd been fishing a lake called Mayfields in the summer months, and decided to join Harefield, the Boyers Harefield, the famous Harefield that everyone talks about. While I was over there in the winter, it was very big carp over there, people chatting, cup of teas, you know, all that sort of stuff, that someone mentioned of a real big fish in a lake close by. At the time, it said a 50-pounder, and obviously this was a long time ago. It's one of them you think, oh, like, but you also know there's a lot of talk, don't you? It was probably maybe a year or two later when I was fishing Rodney Meadow. A guy that I've become really good friends with, Carl, over there, we were chatting about lakes around, you know, around the valley and stuff. And I remember him mentioning Pit 2 and saying that by far the biggest fish he'd ever seen in the water was on that lake when he walked around it in the closed season. I remember him, it was so vividly. He said, mate, it was like a Labrador sat in the water. So obviously, with what I'd heard in the winter and then through a couple of years later hearing it again, yeah, you obviously make note of that and yeah, know that it could be a potential place to fish.
How important was the fact that you were coming up through what are some of the most famous lakes we've ever had in this country? You talked about Rodney Meadow, you talked about, you know, Mayfield, you talked about Harefield. Like, you're a new carp angler. Were you ready for all that?
I guess you don't really know, do you, until you start. But by switching from Mayfields to Harefield, I felt like Mayfields is your more typical starting out type venue, but I felt much more at home on Harefield. I remember barring round there in the snow, having no idea really what I was doing, but you know, reading tales books in the winter and just really enjoying the whole scene, like the big carp scene, the talks, the stories, the teas. So yeah, you just sort of, I've always been one just to try and go and get in amongst it and try, you know, and yeah, those venues, they're such great places to learn. They really, really were.
Talk to me about that inspiration that you got from the lads as well. You mentioned the teas there were like bonfires, like, you know, that seems to have had a big effect on probably the rest of your fishing, really.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. It went from, you do the odd day tickets and stuff like that, and it went from just getting into fishing but then actually getting fired up about the big carp fishing pretty much in my first season, you know. And you think, no,
So mad.
This is what it's all about. Like, this is it. Like, I prefer to sit here, and I did the whole winter on Harefield for one 18-pounder, but yet loved it in comparison to catching loads through the summer on Mayfield. So I felt much more at home on those types of venues. So yeah, I never really went back from there. It was kind of just push on and fish those types of lakes that you want to fish and learn on the job, pretty much.
And knowing what you know now, do you ever look back and think how unusual you were to be like a guy in his first year of proper carp fishing and you're already got aspirations to go and catch monsters on hard waters?
Yeah, you're definitely right. Yeah, I don't quite know how or why that come about, but I just felt much more at home doing that. And obviously, like the rest of us, reading Terry's books, that was the fire, really, and that's what you wanted to do, you know, and those were the places to do it. So yeah, no better way than just getting on with it.
Yeah, mad. Like, you know, whatever it is, 12 years on from the publication of that book, it was still inspiring people to go and like...
Yeah, massively. Yeah. It's just something different from going fishing to going big carp fishing, you know, building up over the year, like real campaign fishing. That is a particular type of thing, and that is really what drew me massively.
Talk to me about how Pit 2 stayed in your mind and how you first came to kind of decide that you needed to set foot on it.
Well, we would always sort of, you know, with your mates that fish, if we ever got like a Sunday free, we'd go for a lap, do walks around the valley, and naturally Pit 2, 3, 4, they were a great place to go and walk, look around. So it was always sort of there. But to be totally honest, I remember walking it with my mate Lee and Scott, who was a guy that we got good friends with on Rodney Meadow, and we walked around it, and those two seemed pretty keen at the time, you know. And I remember thinking, well, how would you ever catch a carp from here? You know, I was pretty confident in my fishing, and found it, you know, didn't find it too difficult to get going on any sort of lake, really. But I remember looking at Pit 2 thinking, like, where would you start? Like, loads you can't even get a lead into, big windswept, you know, 2 rods, like just really difficult. And I thought, I'm not sure. But a few years later, I think it was 2013 when I first got the ticket. But I was on that spring and summer, I was fished the Yateley Match Lake and then Foxpool in the summer. And even by that point, I think even those few years, then sort of 4 or 5 years, I really had, you know, progressed and felt really confident in my fishing. So I remember being on Foxpool and thinking about where to go next. I remember thinking about Nutty Lane quite a lot, to be honest. I really, really wanted to go and target like a big quality mirror. So it was Nutty Lane, Pingewood and Pit 2 were the 3 that were sort of on my mind. Really, I should never even been at Foxpool, let alone thinking about those lakes. But yeah, it all went well. Like, wherever I fished, it was going well. So I thought, why not? Walked round Nutty Lane with the guy that run it. Yeah, can't quite remember why, or I think they actually lost the fishing on there. I think it was a club, and I think it sort of, that fishing went. And yeah, and Pit 2 was close to work. It was really close to work for me, like 15 minutes. So yeah, I kind of felt like it was a good place to at least get my name down on, and then hopefully pick up a ticket at some point and, you know, see when the opportunity arises, it might be somewhere to give a go.
Had this monster that you'd heard about like emerged from myth yet, Scott, or was it still, as far as you were concerned, like a rumour?
Yeah, no, it had emerged. My mate Lee, he sort of worked with a guy, and I think he was on the committee, or at least knew him really well. Yeah, and it became apparent over, you know, you're talking carp all the time, and it was, it became known as the king, basically the king of the lake. And it was there or thereabouts of what they said, to be honest. 49, upper 49s. I don't know if it ever did £50 or not, but either way, it was a massive carp. Yeah, so yeah, it was actually something legitimate that could have potentially been, one to go for at some point.
And where was your fishing at when you got the ticket?
So that's I can't remember when or why or if it come up, but that spring. So I'd fished Foxball in the Match Lake the year before, done really well on both of those. So I was absolutely steaming at that point. The following spring, went over to Cargill's. Yeah, I'm sure it was Cargill's from there, and then the ticket started in the June, and I got lucky on Cargill's pretty early in the spring. So then it felt like it come into place. The ticket had come up. It was good time. I had nothing else, set going on. So yeah, I sort of started straight away.
In terms of your fishing, you say you did really well on the Match Lake and on Foxpool. Would we recognise the sort of angling that you were doing then as being the Scott Sweetman we now see fishing? Was it the same sort of stuff?
Yeah. Not a lot has changed, to be honest. Always just trying to find the fish, always getting on them, always a lot of effort, trying to get out quietly. Yeah, not a great deal's changed. I kind of feel very fortunate that I was lucky to get it right early on. So then I've just been building on that ever since.
And did you get it right on your own?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, yeah. I mean, but all of the mates we fish with, like, we all had input on each other's fishing, no doubt. Rodney Meadow was absolutely key for learning carp fishing. Those fish acted like carp were meant to act, and there was great guys on there, and my brother, my mate Lee, like we were all on it at the same time, learning off each other. And that lake, if the wind picked up and you think they were going to move, they would move, and if you get on them, you'd get bites. It taught you so well, taught you the fundamentals really well, and that has just carried me through, I'd say, for where I am now, to be totally honest.
Yeah, it just seems like you get there in the end if you're a good angler and you happen to get there quickly. You were taught the fundamentals quickly, and they were going to serve you really well on a big pit, because we all know probably the purest form of fishing, right?
Yeah, 100%. It's black and white on a big lake. If you're on them, you can catch them and get bites quite quick, and if you're not, you are pissing in the wind, to be totally honest. But like that, when I did start in the June, I felt like I was pissing in the wind. I remember being there just thinking, like, seeing them show hundreds of yards out of reach of anybody, just off the sailing clubs and stuff. You had no idea. It was a weird lake. There was no spots. So at that point, I had no idea of spots, features. It was quite uniform in a lot of areas, and had no idea what I was looking for, no idea where I should have been or shouldn't have been. Yeah, it was a bit of a baptism of fire, really, starting on there in that summer. Describe
the pit to us, because we're going to hopefully have a map to go with this, but tell me about how big it is, what its nature is, how what the topography was like.
Yeah,
everything you know about pit 2.
So it's kind of shaped a bit like a Wellington boot. So it was quite long, with the foot part being one end off around the back of the sailing club. They say it's about 50 acres. I'm not too sure. Sort of good average depth, 12, 14 foot from memory. But it always felt really uniform to me. There was a few bits down the road bank where you would have some humps and stuff, but not really, not many. I very rarely fished clear spots. It was very sort of weedy, but low line weed. Yeah, not bars, not what you'd sort of, completely different from the hairfield across the road. But basically there was the main sort of 3 banks with a couple of swims on either side, but there was a big sailing club over one side, which meant there was masses of water that you couldn't get in. There's a lot of snags, like underwater snags as well, like zebras and stuff. So it made fishing at you needed to have your proper kit on, but you also wanted to fish out of range. But everything was tricky. So like when there was a wind, there was a big wind. I didn't know I knew nothing about the lake when I started, absolutely nothing. It was very much like get there and work it out, like what you do everywhere else. But I guess on a lake that sort of size, just even leading about, you could be leading about for absolutely hours trying to find something that wasn't there. And in the end, you sort of work out how to get around it. But yeah, as for the lake, that is pretty much what it was about. Loads of sailing on there, loads of kids, like the inflatable like adventure things that float around, yeah, there was loads going on all the time. It was a real busy lake and busy with the public, but not too busy with the anglers, which was good.
Did you gel with it quickly? Did you buzz off it?
Yes, yeah, like I say, that first sort of handful of nights I did, I think at that point in my fishing, there was just so much excitement because you were new into it, and there was lakes all around you. I couldn't have been in a better area. So when I started on there in the summer, I sort of thought, I feel like I'm potentially, one, a little out of my depth, and two, wasting my time a little bit. The winds weren't there. There wasn't anything to drag them into the areas that you think, I weren't seeing them within range. So yeah, quickly, I'm not going to say that, I started the lake and that was it, that was me. I was staying there till the bitter end. Yeah, I quickly felt like there was a park lake nearby, and doing mornings before work, I felt like that was a better option. And yeah, later that summer, so I did a handful of nights basically that summer. Went and did a local park lake, and then started on Pingewood Lagoon, sort of late summer. Again, when I mentioned those fish earlier, like that, I remember, I think it was Punks, the guy Punks, who maybe caught it at 54 pound, the brute. Obviously it was another one of those big carp, but it felt like in a whatever 12, 15 acre lake, it felt a little bit more doable. So yeah, started over there late summer, basically, and sort of didn't get back to the pit 2 till the following spring.
Do you think that as much as you'd enjoyed it, like it's seen you off a little bit?
Definitely. And it's probably the only place I could say that on since I've been, but yeah, definitely. I looked at it and thought, where do I start? Like you with any lake, you need a bite, don't you? And I did not see where one was coming from. And although the lakes I went off to are real tricky park lakes, and Pingewood's a busy circuit water and stuff, but felt way more in my lane. I could, the fish were somewhere within reach. I could do what I needed to do to catch them. But yeah, definitely see me off.
It's really interesting to me that you back yourself enough to go to Pingewood, which was, attracting some of the best long stay anglers in the game at that point, because the brute was massive by that stage.
Yeah.
And yet you weren't backing yourself enough to stay on a local pit, which was quiet.
Yeah, I think it just felt like you were wasting your time. You felt like the fish weren't even within range or within fishing distance to be able to catch them. Yeah, and it was the biggest lake by a long way that I'd ever, Harefield, I say, obviously was still a decent size, but it's a lot different Harefield. It was broken up with islands, and this was a big slab of open water, and you'd see them show hundreds of yards away and think, how am I ever catching one of them? Because even then, like range fishing, it was all new. It was all something I was learning.
So you're heading back the following spring. Did you do the classic mistake and bowl up there in like late February or early March?
No, so I actually started the early spring on Pinge again, but it was so busy. It was so busy, like early March. I just thought it was. I guess I was still finding my feet of what I liked in carp fishing. To be honest, nowadays I'm quite happy to deal with a busy club lake or circuit water. But then I was like, I think I need a bit of more quiet fishing, just maybe me against the carp a bit more. And I was really toying with Englefield because there was nobody on it at that stage, and pit 2. And I thought I'd had good result out of Pingewood, but just felt like I'm not into wasting my time too much. So it felt like I was wasting my time a little bit. So basically, sort of toying between the two, and then found out through a mate that actually pit 2 was opening for the spring for the first ever time. It's obviously pivotal, if a lake like that, a big pit that's never been open in the spring before, you're like, right, now this is viable. You instantly see the opportunity there. And I think this was due to HS2, the fact that it was going to be going through the lake at some stage. I think they wanted to just get the most out of the fishing while it was there. It opened on the 1st of April, which is an amazing time to start on any lake, especially on a big old lake like that. But yeah, I turned up for the draw, and from memory, I think I come out really well, really high. I got in the foxhole this swim. If you looked at a map now, you would say, you know, that is the place to go. It's the nearest swim to the sailing club, which theoretically is the outer bounds, and it's on the sort of southwest end of the lake. I'm pretty sure, like, when we walked around in the morning, like, you know, it's calm, big mist, and I'm sure we see a few like slosh out down that end. Yeah, it was mega, mate. It was so exciting because it's gone now from a lake you think, oh, I'm going to catch a few, to actually, we're here in the spring, I'm in the swim that you'd probably want to have been in. Yeah, it actually felt like I was fishing.